In this video, we'll learn about Boolean values and some common Boolean operations. There are exactly two Boolean values, true and false. As with other values, like numbers or strings, we can assign Boolean values to variables. For example, in the context of a program about the weather, I might have a variable named isRaining, which could be true or false. Remember that the equal sign here is the assignment operator. We are assigning the value true to the variable named isRaining. In order to check if two values or expressions are equal, we need to use the double equal operator. The double equal operator takes two inputs and checks if they are equal. If they're equal, it evaluates to true. If they aren't, it evaluates to false. For example, we know that 2 does not equal 3. So we could use the double equal operator. This is comparing, is 2 equal to 3? We know that it's not, so we expect it to evaluate to false. If I run this code, we can see that it does indeed evaluate to false. Remember that the equal operator assigns a value and the double equal operator checks for equality. Python has primitive operators that operate on Boolean values. Primitive means built into the language. The most common logical operators are not, or, and, double equals, and is not equal to. The not operator negates its input. So not true, if I run this code, would evaluate to false. Or not false, as you can imagine, would evaluate to true. Or evaluates to true if either or both of its inputs are true and false otherwise. So let's think of an example. Let's stick with our weather example. So I will create some variables to store Boolean values. Maybe I'll have is hot, is cold, is raining, and is sunny. Now we can use these variables as input to our OR operator, or as the operands, and we can see what output OR gives us. So if I say is hot or is raining, is hot is true, is raining is true, so we would expect this to evaluate to true. Remember that OR evaluates to true if either or if both of its inputs are true. So that evaluates to true. Let's try that with something else. Let's say is cold or is raining. We still see the output from the previous time we ran the cell. But if I rerun this cell, we will see what OR evaluates true. In this case, it evaluates to true. Is cold is false and is raining is true. So at least one of its input is true, therefore it evaluates to true. If I changed it to is cold and is sunny, those are both false, so I'd expect it to evaluate to false. The AND operator evaluates to true when both of its inputs are true, and false otherwise. So let's see our example with an AND. Is cold and is sunny. When I run this code, I expect it to evaluate to false. Both inputs are false. If I change one of the inputs to one of my variables that's storing true, I still expect it to evaluate to false. And only evaluates to true if both inputs are true. But if I did is hot and is raining, those are the two variables that are storing the value true, then I would expect it to evaluate to true. And we can see that it does. We've already learned about the double equal operator, which checks if two inputs are equal. But what we haven't seen yet is the not equal operator. So the not equal operator is the exclamation mark, or sometimes people say it as bang. I would read this as 2 does not equal 3. So this is an operator that checks for inequality. So it's the opposite of checking for equality. It evaluates to true if the two inputs are not equal, and evaluates to false if they are equal. So here, with the current example, we're essentially asking, is 2 equal to 3? That will evaluate to either true or false. We know that 2 is not equal to 3, so we expect it to evaluate to true. If I changed it so that they were equal and rerun it, then it would evaluate to false. Take a few minutes and play around with some of these examples. Practice using these operators that we just learned about. I'll write them down as a last reminder. Double equals, not, and or.